Welcome to A Chef's Grimoire, Winter. Today we'll be working with the Fool. In the last two parts of the Fool, we talked about the elements. In part 2, we worked with earth and fire, and today in part 3, we're working with air and we're working with water. These recipes are sure to tempt you, so let's get started. In part 1, we learned about honing a knife, the difference between honing and sharpening. So we're going to hone a bit, get the edge back on the knife. Now we're going to cut away both ends of the scallion, and we're going to peel it so that it's nice and clean. Now we have it ready. We're going to cut the scallion into a julienne. And you'll see I'm pinching and cutting through the pinch. Now we're going to cross cut into a chop. Now I'm going to mince with the middle of the knife, holding the tip down. Hopefully you've been practicing. Now we're going to chop up some chives. These need no preparation. You just sure them up like little soldiers and off you go. Next up is our onion. We're going to cut off the stalk end. Pinch curl on the knife, cut down and through, and get a nice flat surface. You're going to put that against the board, pinch, go under the pinch, and cut down and through, keeping a bit of the root on each side of the onion. Now you're going to peel. Now for this recipe, we're not going to dice or chop the onion. Instead, we're going to grate it. And I'm using a box grater like this instead of a food processor. I only have one onion to grate, so I figured I'd get my work out. Now notice I'm doing this on parchment paper. The parchment is a beautiful thing because you can grate everything on it, whether it be onion, cheese, plantain, and you can move it anywhere you want. For the plantain, we're going to cut both ends off. Now this is an unripe plantain, meaning it's a green plantain. It's not as sweet as the riper ones, nor does the peel come off as easily as when it's ripe. So instead of trying to take it off with your fingers, do this trick with the knife. Just hold it on itself and cut down all around the peel. Now we're going to grate the plantain just as we did the onion. But if you see any green bits that you didn't take off the first time, just go over your work. Make sure that all the peel is off. Now we're going to assemble the filling. We've got the plantain and the red onion, scallion, an egg, salt. Mix up really, really well. I'm also going to add a pinch or two of the chives into the batter. The rest will be for garnish. Now you're going to get a pan nice and hot, and you're going to add about a cup. I'm using an avocado oil, but you want a high heat oil. Grapeseed oil, even coconut oil would work. You could see how it's shimmering in the pan because the pan was hot before the oil was added. Now I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of batter and kind of form it into a pancake. Now I'm putting as many little pancakes into the pan, but leaving space between them. You need space for them to brown, not steam, and you need space for them to be turned with the spatula. You're going to notice that they're ready to turn, just like kind of pancakes when you see the brown on the outer edge. But you're flipping them and they should be beautifully golden brown at the bottom. Once they're golden brown, you're going to put them onto a wire rack and let them cool. Now I'm taking the spatula and I'm going to try to get all the little bits that fell off the pancakes out of the hot oil. I don't want them burning when I'm frying up the rest of the pancakes. Look at these. Yum. They're tender on the inside and crisp on the outside. In this next recipe, we'll be working with the air fryer. Now my air fryer has 2 giant holes in the middle of the rack, so I put a piece of tin foil in there to help the chickpeas not fall through, and I'm brushing with avocado oil. The chickpeas have been drained. I'm using canned, but I want to pick out any of the little outer shells to make sure that they don't burn when the chickpeas are air frying. Into the bucket they go, and swirl them around a little bit so they're coated with the oil. I like to give them a good shake. Now we're setting the air fryer for 400 and we're going to do 20 minutes. Meanwhile, we're going to mix up the sauce. We've got olive oil, extra virgin. We've got lime zest, cumin, salt, and a taco seasoning into the bowl. And a little lime juice as well. And mix that up really well. Now that the chickpeas have roasted, they should be super crisp. I'm going to remove the bottom rack from my air fryer just to get it out of the way. I don't want it falling over into the bowl. And pour the chickpeas into the dressing. Mix them up really well, and then put them on a sheet tray so that they can cool. I prefer to do this rather than keeping them in the bowl so that they crisp up. Crispy, salty, a little heat. Gorgeous. Now for the kimchi, this is where we're going to practice all the knife skills we've done up until this point. I need the cucumbers to be a certain length for the look of the dish. So I'm just eyeballing and getting them ready. Now that they're ready, I'm going to cut each cucumber into quarters, and then I'm going to cut each quarter into half. I'm going to do that with all of the cucumbers. Once I have them in a bowl, I'm going to use coarse salt, about a tablespoon, and I'm going to mix it all into the cucumbers. This is going to start releasing all the liquid. Let that sit for 20 minutes while you prep the rest of your veg. Again, we're chopping off the top and bottom of our scallion, and I'm going to make them the same length, give or take, of the cucumber. Then I'm going to julienne them. Next up is garlic. I've got 2 fat cloves, but both of them have a little callus at the top, so I'm going to cut that off. It's like a brown callus. Now I'm going to pinch the garlic clove And I'm going to bring my knife through several times to make planks. You remember this. We went over this in part 1. Because it's such a fat clove, I'm going to take half of the stack and put it aside and only work with half at a time. Now I'm going to run my knife through again to make julienne cut. Hold the cut and chop it. I'm going to do this with all the garlic. Now we're going to mince. Now we're going to work with ginger. Now ginger, you can actually peel it with a knife if you wish, but I like using a spoon. I like the spoon because you can get into all the gnarly bits and not take off as much of the root as you would with a knife. Now we're going to trim it away just to make sure all of the calloused ends are off. And I only need a half teaspoon for the recipe, so I'm going to take it, I'm going to cut my planks. And then I'm going to julienne each plank. And then I'm going to cross cut the julienne into a brunoise. And mince, mince, mince. Now for the carrot. I like to trim both ends of the carrot. Look at this guy, it's weird. And then we're going to peel. Now we're going for that same length as the cucumber. And then we're going to make these into a julienne. You remember how to do this. We did this in the first lesson. Now that the cucumber has been sitting about 10 minutes, you're going to dust off the salt and let any of the residual water and residual salt be left in the bowl. And to our cucumbers, we're going to add our julienne carrots and scallion and a bit of grated pear. Any pear would work. To mix the sauce, we're going to add our chili flakes, fish sauce, the garlic, ginger, and about a tablespoon of honey, more or less depending on your tastes. Now we're going to add our sauce to the vegetables and mix it up really well. This is going to stay on the countertop for up to 18 hours. That's for the fermentation process to really do its work. So this is the kimchi. It was supposed to rest for 18 hours on the countertop. I got a little sidetracked. Mine rested for about 22 hours. No problem. It's fermentation, so it works. You'll see it's got a little bit of liquid at the bottom. Actually, it's more liquidy than it was. And it smells amazing. And it's ready to eat. So, you know what's delicious about this? This is the perfect kimchi for people that don't like kimchi. The cucumber is so moist and sweet. The first thing I taste is sweet. A tiny bit of heat. I only used a tablespoon of the hot pepper flake, so go to town if you really like spicy, but this to me is not spicy at all. It's got kick, but it's not spicy. It's absolutely delicious, so I hope you try it. And one way to display it is put it into endive leaves. So good. Okay, I'm gonna say these cookies are hands down one of my favorites. We're gonna cream the butter and add miso paste. Yes, miso paste. Brown sugar, white sugar, and let it rip. We're gonna add our egg. And we're going to add the flour, a little at a time, until it all comes together. We're going to add baking powder and baking soda. And once your batter comes together, put it on a sheet tray, spread it out, and let it cool. Now I'm using a cookie scoop to form the little cookies, but you can also use your hands. We are measuring in grams, so I have a little food scale and I'm going to turn it to grams. And I'm looking for about 26 grams per cookie, give or take. The dough should be chilled. This is a very soft dough, so if it starts to get sticky, just stop what you're doing, put it in the fridge for a little bit or the freezer, and start again. Now after all your balls have been formed, you're going to flatten them into like a hockey puck. And I like to go around with them to make sure that they're all even in thickness. Next up, the coating. So these sesame seeds have been toasted in a 350 oven for about 10 minutes, just to kind of give them color. But they're going to bake on the cookies as well, so you don't want to overdo it. Okay, our cold cookies have rested. So we're going to pop these in a 350 oven for 10 minutes. Then I'll show you what happens. So halfway between baking, you're going to take some vessel. I'm using a melon baller, the back of a melon baller, to make an indentation in the middle of the cookies. Now these cookies are perfect as is. You don't need to do anything else, but I like to put a little Nutella in the center. Who would have thought water would taste so good? Thanks for watching. We've now gone through 3 parts of the Fool. Part 1 was learning about the Fool, what they have in their pack, the elements. We then went into recipes for earth and fire. And in this last video, we did water and air. Next up, we're going to talk about the magician. And we're going to pair that with some recipes. So I hope you tune in. See you then.